We're going to be talking about the recent discovery of a backdoor in a suite of software called Utils. Software developer Andres Freund reported to OSS Security, a security-related mailing list, that a backdoor was present in the two most recent tarballs of Utils. This was an extremely well-designed and executed supply chain attack. It involved years of social engineering and preparation before any malicious code was even merged. Surprisingly, this backdoor was discovered somewhat by accident. So with all of this doomsaying, you might be wondering if you are affected. Getting straight to the list, if you are running any of the following distributions, you need to update now. Hello, how the tech are you? I'm HK Perrin, and this week my segment is going to be a bit different. It's fully scripted, and there won't be a Q&A. We're going to be talking about the recent discovery of a backdoor in a suite of software called Utils. This is one of the biggest cybersecurity stories in years, and we want to get all of the information correct. So in addition to providing the full script, we are also linking all of our sources in the description. If we become aware of any mistakes, we will make a correction comment and pin it to the top of the comments section of this video. Utils is a very widely used suite of programs and libraries that handle lossless data compression using the XZ format and the older LZMA format. On Friday, March 29th, 2024, software developer Andres Freund reported to OSS Security, a security-related mailing list, that a backdoor was present in the two most recent tarballs of Utils that would allow a specific attacker with the right private key to compromise any patched SSHD server running the code. A tarball is similar to a zip file and is a common way to deliver source code for Linux distribution maintainers to build and deploy to their users. And the tarballs for versions 5.6.0 and 5.6.1 had been purposefully crafted to conceal the backdoor and inject it while the software is being built for packaging. SSHD is a very popular SSH server, and SSH is a remote access and administration protocol that allows you to run commands on a remote server. This video will offer a comprehensive overview of the attack. This specific kind of cyber attack is known as a supply chain attack, and the kind of vulnerability it introduced is known as a backdoor. Supply chain attacks, as the name implies, target the supply chain of software. That is to say, they deliberately aim to introduce vulnerabilities into a piece of software before it is delivered to the end user. A backdoor is a specific kind of vulnerability that is meant to only allow the malicious attacker to gain access, as opposed to most vulnerabilities, which allow anyone who knows about them to exploit them. A user or group of users using the name GiaTan and the username GiaT75 spent years building a good reputation with the maintainer of the Utils project, Lassie Collin. It's likely that this malicious actor chose the Utils project partly because it was maintained by a single developer who seemed to be putting less and less time into the project. The malicious actor, who I'll refer to from now on as GiaTan, even though that's almost definitely a fake name, began contributing to the Utils project all the way back in October of 2021. Throughout the first half of 2022, several accounts with seemingly no presence outside of messages to the Utils mailing list hounded Lassie Collin to add another maintainer to the project. As a maintainer of several open source projects, this is not foreign to me, and this should be one of the biggest takeaways of this whole incident. Open source developers are often treated poorly by users and even corporations, and their work often goes unrewarded. The modern web is built off of the work of unpaid volunteers, and that needs to change. That it's built off volunteers, but that they're unpaid. Sometime around October of 2022, GiaTan is added as a maintainer to the Utils project. Over the next year and 4 months, they updated various parts of the code and references and settings in other projects to prepare to incorporate their backdoor into the project. And on February 23rd, 2024, GiaTan finally added their backdoor code to the project. And 1 day later, tagged the first release to include it, 5.6.0. Over the next month, Jiatan and at least one other account that seems to be the same malicious actor requested the maintainers of several Linux distributions to include the new version. This was an extremely well-designed and executed supply chain attack. It involved years of social engineering and preparation before any malicious code was even merged. We're all very lucky that it was discovered in time before it was shipped to millions of systems. Surprisingly, this backdoor was discovered somewhat by accident. In Andres' announcement email, he describes looking into the liblzma library because of, quote, a few odd symptoms around liblzma over the last weeks. Logins with SSH taking a lot of CPU, Valgrind errors. Amazingly, it was only a half-second increase from 0.3 seconds to 0.8 seconds of SSH logins that caught him off guard. Through some astoundingly thorough detective work and help from another engineer named Florian Weimer, Andres tracked down and extracted the injected malicious code in the XZUtils repository. Once the backdoor had been tracked down to XZUtils version 5.6.0 and 5.6.1, Andres reported his findings to both Debian and Red Hat assigned the CVE ID CVE 2024-3094. CVE, or Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures, is a system that identifies, defines, and catalogs vulnerabilities in publicly available software. CVEs are assigned a severity score between 0 and 10, 0 meaning no severity, and 9 to 10 meaning critical severity. Only a small portion of CVEs rise to the level of a severity 10, the highest possible severity, and this CVE is one of them. So with all of this doomsaying, you might be wondering if you are affected. Luckily, the answer is almost definitely no. Only a small list of distributions, mostly testing versions and rolling releases, are affected. Getting straight to the list, if you are running any of the following distributions, you need to update now. Fedora Rawhide, Fedora Linux 40 Beta, Debian Testing, Debian Unstable, Debian Experimental, OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, OpenSUSE Micro OS, and Kali Linux. Other distributions may not be affected by the backdoor because they seem to not meet its requirements to execute, but do include its code, so should be updated immediately as well. That includes Arch Linux and possibly its derivatives. If you are running any other distribution that contains XZUtils 5.6.0 or 5.6.1, you need to update. If you can't update to a downgraded version for some reason, you should disable SSH access on your system. There may be other ways to activate the backdoor though, so you may not be safe just by turning off SSH. Now let's talk about how this backdoor works. First, the backdoor needs to be delivered to the distribution maintainers. As I mentioned earlier, this is done through something called a tarball, which is similar to a zip file and contains all the source code for the XZUtils project needed to build packages for various Linux distributions. The backdoored tarballs contain a build script called build2host.m4 that differs from the build script in the Git repository, where all the source code is tracked. This isn't actually an uncommon practice, and the changes in the tarball version are specifically designed to look innocent. Commands that would normally be done with a simple utility are obfuscated to look like normal build process work. This build file causes the build process to extract, decipher, and run a shell script, which extracts and runs another shell script that executes in several phases. The shell scripts are hidden within malicious test files. The first script is designed to look like a corrupt stream in a compressed file that contains multiple streams. This made the script seem to be a legitimate part of the testing infrastructure for XZUtils. The second script is hidden within the same file as the payload, a large file that is also designed to look like part of the testing infrastructure. The second script runs in two phases. First, modifying the build process called make to re-execute the malicious script. The second phase is run by make, and it delivers the payload. The payload is a pre-built object file. That is to say, it isn't compiled from source code during the process, but rather is already compiled. The script extracts this object file from the malicious test file and actually decrypts it using a rudimentary RC4-like encryption algorithm. The object file is placed within the build files in place of one of the real object files before the linking process so that it looks like it was built by the make process. Now that the malicious code has been compiled into the library, it intercepts function calls that verify client-provided certificates before authentication in an SSH connection. The backdoor checks that the message is signed by a specific private key only known to the attacker. This means that they, and only they, can execute the attack. It's likely that they could use this backdoor to gain immediate root access to any compromised machine. Everyone in the cybersecurity world is wondering who this attacker could be right now. The name Jia Tan is definitely fake, but the person or people behind it do exist, and we know very little about them. We know that they're knowledgeable, skilled, and patient enough to execute this attack, and that hints towards a state-funded actor. It's also likely that they only pretended to be of Chinese origin and are actually from somewhere in the Eastern Europe time zone. Their commits occurred during normal 9 to 5 working hours in this time zone, and they never committed on holidays commonly celebrated there, but did commit on holidays commonly celebrated in China. From what we can tell, the agent behind Jia seemed to be trying to hide their national origin. Other figures involved in this event are noticeably absent from internet history outside of related forums. This includes Jigar Kumar, the Jigar Kumar account, and the Dennis Enns account, which pushed for Jia Tan's promotion to maintainer of XZUtils. The Hans Johnson account, or Janssen account, also only appears in related forums, both in the XZUtils repo and in the push to get the compromised version included in Debian. It's likely that all of these figures were just aliases of the actor behind the Jia Tan account. One thing to note is that Lassie Collin, the original and ongoing maintainer of XZUtils, appears to be another victim of Jia Tan and not a willing participant. This whole saga raises a few questions that seem to reach the heart of open source development. Is open source development to blame for this incident? I think it's rather the opposite, that open source development is what prevented this backdoor from being widely distributed in the first place. Because the source code of the project is delivered in tarballs that are built by the release maintainers of these distributions, the anomaly detected by Andres Frund could be investigated. If, like with an operating system like Windows, he had only ever received compiled machine code, there would be no practical way to determine that the backdoor existed. Additionally, there is only one party responsible for closed source operating systems, and if that party becomes compromised, the system can become compromised without detection. So it's because XZUtils is open source that this backdoor required a monumental effort to create and release, and it's because XZUtils is open source that it was immediately caught. And of course, the amazing work by Andres. What can we learn from this incident? One of the bigger takeaways here should be just how valuable good open source maintainers are, especially maintainers for core operating system libraries and tools. XZUtils was maintained for years by one developer who received very little resources to do his work. The big tech companies who benefit from open source work give back very little that doesn't directly benefit them. That's something that should change. At the very least, governments should consider providing more support for open source development that benefits the industry as a whole. Hopefully, a lot of good will come from this attack. Thank you for watching How the Tech Are You? And if you like what we do, give the video a like and consider subscribing. It really helps the channel. Check out all of our other shows at echoplexmedia.com, and you can support us at patreon.com/echoplex and eplex.store. You can check out another video on the screen right now. Have a great tech and week.